If Brad Stevens was able to pull this move off on draft night, it would be absolutely insane for the Boston Celtics, as the latest mocks have been coming out for this team, and as draft season is approaching, we're going to be diving in and looking at some key prospects. And this one right here, I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, is talented enough and could fill in some voids and needs the Celtics have in their front court with some questionable offseason moves in the trade market, and potentially losing some guys in free agency. So we're going to be diving in and exploring this draft preview on one target that I think would be an absolute basically perfect get for the Boston Celtics. So welcome to Celtics Digest. I am Bruce Veliz, and thank you guys so much for showing your support on these videos every single day. We're going to be start looking at some draft prospects, and this is the first one I really wanted to dive into. So without further ado, if you guys do enjoy the content, make sure to hit that subscribe button and let me know what your guys' thoughts are on this prospect. But let's dive into it and grab that snack. As personally, I believe that if the Celtics were able to land Danny Wolf from Michigan, that this would be an absolute amazing haul for this Celtics team in this draft. And if we want to look at this article written by Nick Goss, courtesy of NBC Sports Boston, we can see that he has the 2025 NBA mock draft roundup looking at some best fits for the Celtics in the first round. And in his article, he says that the Celtics could go in several different directions with their number 28 overall pick in the first round this season, but center is probably the team's most glaring roster need issue to address, as veterans Al Horford and Luke Kornet are both able to become unrestricted free agents this summer, and Kristaps Porziņģis has played well for Boston when healthy, but he's also missed 65 regular season games since becoming a Celtic 2 seasons ago and dealing with some injuries in the playoffs. So it makes sense to bolster the depth of this front court with this pick and getting someone who can come here on a rookie deal or a cheap contract to really fill in those needs. We all know the Celtics also have other centers in Amos Queta and Xavier Tillman, with them still needing some development to really find out if they can be a sticking point in this Celtics rotation. I think the Celtics going in the draft is a key motive of drafting the center position, and he mentioned some centers in here as well, and he mentioned Ryan Cockburner, who I also like, which we'll have a video about later, but one key guy that he mentioned was Danny Wolf. The Michigan center is another mid to late first round prospect to consider too, as he averaged 13.2 points and 9.7 rebounds per game from Michigan after transferring from Yale. He's 7 foot and 250 pounds. A case also can be made to take the best player available, and either way, the Celtics just need to take another player who can step in and play the right way. A wing who can create his own shot and defend multiple positions would be helpful for Boston's roster as well, as you can never have enough 3-and-D wings, but the Celtics have an expensive roster as a second apron team, so there aren't any good options for them to add talent around this roster. The most cost-effective method in this draft, which is one reason why making a good pick at number 28 is so important for this Celtics team. So what players should help the Celtics consider that pick in the draft? Well, he looked at some mock drafts, and we'll dive into those players in a later video, but I wanted to talk about Danny Wolf and my boys over on How About Them Celtics. Shout out to Sam LaFrance and Jack Simone. Already did a video a couple of days ago diving in, looking at some plays, looking at some highlights on Danny Wolf. So if you did not check that video after this one, definitely go over and watch theirs, as they gave some great film breakdown and analysis on the center. But if we want to look at his stats for his college career, as we mentioned, played at Yale for 2 seasons, transferred to Michigan last year, and at Yale his first year as his rookie didn't really get that much playing time, only played 7 minutes, but his second year, his sophomore year, played 32 games at around 31 minutes and played pretty solid, averaging 14 points, 9.7 rebounds, and 2.4 assists, with 1.3 blocks and 1 steal, shooting 47% and 34% from the field and 71% from the free throw. Now, obviously, Yale, being in the Ivy League school, a little bit of smaller competition, not the best competition, so transferring to Michigan and getting up against some bigger opponents, it's great to see that even though his numbers did drop a little bit on the points, the steals, and on the in those numbers, he was able to still average the same amount of rebounds, average more assists with 3.6, average 1.4 blocks, and shoot better percentages from the field goal, little worse than 3, and unfortunately little worse from the free throw percentage. But Wolf, in my opinion, I think could be a great fit for this squad, not to mention for the fact the Celtics have these holes on this roster and could, with guys like Al Horford and Luke Kornet testing free agency and the uncertainty of Kristaps Porziņģis looming over the Celtics if they keep him, if they trade him, what they really do with him to keep this in this roster. But Wolf presents a lot of qualities that I think could help out this Boston Celtics team. If we want to look once again at his stats to really examine this here, when I dive in and look at Danny Wolf, where is the stats? Here they are. 49% shooting from the field and 33% shooting from three is key. Celtics love to shoot their three-pointers, love to have a great big man who can do that. We've seen that with Al Horford. We've seen that with Kristaps Porziņģis. Even Luke Kornet back in his heyday could shoot threes and probably still could if the Celtics did need him to get back into that arsenal, but ultimately doesn't have to play that role for the Celtics. But Wolf, once again, can be that kind of filler player. He played the 5, played the 4 now. One key thing with him is his turnovers, and if you look at that, 2.3 and 3.2 over his 2 seasons where he was getting dominant minutes. But Wolf is kind of like a playmaking big, right? He would initiate the offense and run this offense alongside another 7-footer at Michigan, who I'm blanking on the name on. I know Patrick knows him because he knows a lot more about college, but playing alongside another big man was a key, and also being a facilitator and playmaker alongside another big man for this Michigan offense is just another role that he can do for this Celtics team. And I don't think he'll necessarily be a playmaker for the Boston Celtics, as they got guys like Derrick White, and when Jayson Tatum comes back, he'll be initiating the offense as well, leading this team, maybe even Peyton Pritchard. But I do think a guy like Danny Wolf could also use that passing ability to open up slots similar like Luke Kornet does down low in the post, or maybe even open up some driving lanes by kicking out to the three-point line, to be able to initiate that corner 3 offense the Celtics really, really loves. Obviously, the free throw shooting is a little bit glaring as well, of a bit of an issue for Danny Wolf, but 9.7 rebounds really solves that hole that the Celtics have at the rebounding position. We saw in their series versus the Knicks without Jayson Tatum that was a big caveat, especially with Kristaps Porziņģis being down, and with Tatum being one of your leading rebounders on the team and being out next season, addressing that hole and really filling in that is key. Not to mention, like I've said multiple times, with Horford and the potential of Luke Kornet either leaving or retiring or not being in Boston, addressing this position of need at pick 28 is going to be key. Now, the only thing is, will Danny Wolf be at pick 28? I don't necessarily think so. I think that if he falls this late, a lot of teams have seen some issues with his game, but I think that the Celtics, it would be a no-brainer to swoop up and pick this guy, regardless of how other teams are looking at it or how he falls, because I think he could be a key piece to maybe even be that power forward / center to play alongside some guys, or be a pretty solid role-playing backup forward / big for this Boston Celtics team. And I would really love to have that inserted right away, specifically in a player, once again, who's played 3 years in college. So coming into the league at 21, 22 years old, Danny Wolf is going to be hopefully ready to go, similar to their previous pick in Baylor Shireman, who they're hoping to give a little bit more reins to this offseason. And who knows, maybe they can work a little bit of a pick and roll tandem, him alongside Peyton Pritchard as well, to really develop and get Danny Wolf to bring out his best potential with this Celtics team. So like I said, I really like Danny Wolf. He presents a lot of great qualities as a shooting big, as a passing big for this Celtics team, as a really solid rebounder as well. And I think all 3 of those qualities really fit in what the Celtics are looking for to really replace if they do lose a guy like Al Horford, Luke Kornet, and Kristaps Porziņģis, or if they lose 1 or 2 of those guys, to patch in those holes that they still similarly have of their cohesion, of their similar system, and also getting a very solid piece on a rookie scale contract who can continue to grow and potentially be an underwriting star for Boston. So let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section, what you guys think about Danny Wolf and how you guys would like to see of him on the roster, or if there's anybody else that you guys would like to see in these draft breakdowns. Let me know down below in the comment section. Like I said, we're going to be doing these as we get closer to the draft. The draft is 23 days away, so we are a little bit of ways away, and some picks could be moved and stuff like that. Who knows what's going to happen on draft night, but as of looking at right now, at pick 28, the Celtics, if they got Danny Wolf, would be an absolute steal, and I would love it. So let me know your thoughts, like I said, down below in the comment section, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Have a great rest of your day, and go Boston Celtics.